Welcome to Jackie's Craft Table. Hi everyone, welcome. I'm creating a couple of fidget spinner cards in this video, and I'm using some fun products from Studio Katia. This set is called Spin-Tastic. The paper I'm using for this first card is from Gina K Designs, and it's called Artist's Choice. It says it's good for colored pencils as well as alcohol markers. I'm going to be using colored pencils on this. I'm always on the lookout for a nice paper that works well with colored pencils. I like my paper to have a little bit of tooth to it so that it grabs the pigment off the pencils. And it's so much more satisfying and fun playing with my colored pencils when I have a good paper to work with. I'm going to stamp out a whole row of these spinners, and I'm starting with my middle spinner. And I've created a few masks so that I can stamp it and then mask it and then stamp again. I want this first fidget spinner to be out in front. That's why I stamped that first. I really enjoy the whole stamping and masking process. I love the result it provides as well as the process. I think it's just a lot of fun. I do fidget a bit with this first mask. I just can't get it in the right place. But once I finally do, I'm going to shift my paper over a few squares and then stamp it down again. This will give me a very precise row of these spinners. And using this Mini Misty really makes this process easy and fun. I only cut out the 2 masks, but that's really all I need because I could keep reusing them. I'm stamping 3 on each side of this middle fidget spinner. I have 1 fidget spinner for each color of the rainbow, and I am going to color this in rainbow order. And I'm going to stamp right off the edge of the page. I'm just going to shift this mask one more time on this side. And then I can repeat the process on the other side of the fidget spinner. And it's okay that the paper goes off the side of the Misty. It still works just fine. This masking paper really held up well. It's from Simon Says Stamp. It came in the last card kit. I think it was for May. And it was such a big sheet of paper, it's going to take me a while to get through it, so I'm using that up. And then I'm going to take off the masks here, and this panel is ready to be colored. Looks so cute. I have the set of 36 Faber-Castell Polychromos pencils. I really love these. And I'm going to jump right into the coloring. And I'm going to speed this up because it's just basic coloring. I'm just going in rainbow order, as I said. However, this time I am going to tack down my panel. I want to keep this panel still while I'm coloring so I don't make you all dizzy because I do tend to shift the paper a lot. But I'm going to try and keep it steady for this coloring. So my son's favorite color is green, and this is yet another card for him. He kind of claimed this as I was creating this card. And so it worked out perfectly because this middle fidget spinner is green, and it's going to be covered with an actual spinning fidget spinner in a few minutes here. You'll see what I'm going to do. I really love the look of colored pencils. However, I wanted to brighten these up just a little bit, so I'm going to come in with some mineral spirits, some Gamsol. This helps to smoothen out my coloring, and it does brighten it up a bit. I'm just going to quickly do that. I'm just using 1 blending stump. And in between colors, I'll scrape it off on the sandpaper I have here at the left, and it will take off all the color that's on this blending stump so I don't contaminate the different colors. I'm stamping out 1 more fidget spinner with some VersaFine Onyx black ink. And this ink will stay wet long enough for me to pour over some clear embossing powder. I thought I'd emboss this one just to make it stand out a little more from the other fidget spinners. It does provide me with a little bit of a raised line and a glossiness to it. You'll see that I did stamp one out with Versamark ink. I wasn't sure if I wanted the fidget spinner to be black or white at this time. I just embossed them both, and then I can keep the one I don't use for another project. I'm using the coordinating die to cut this out. And I'm also going to cut out one just with plain white paper and glue them together. This will just add a little more substance to my fidget spinner. I used the dies to cut out the other little elements for this fidget spinner in black cardstock, and also in kind of a silver cardstock. It's more of a shimmery gray, but I picked this up at the Gina K store as well. These circle die cuts will add a little more weight to this fidget spinner, which will help it to spin even better. So I'm gluing down the black first, and then I'm going to glue on the smaller circles with the silver. I looked online for instructions for this set, but I couldn't find any, so I'm just figuring it out myself, but it worked out all right in the end. I'm just using my poker tool and my small scissors to pierce a hole through the middle of this fidget spinner and also through my card panel. Just make sure the hole is big enough in the spinner that when you put the brad through, it spins smoothly. Now I can connect that to my card panel. I'm going to use my poker tool again. I'm curling the ends of this brad over this tool. This will allow the spinner a little bit of wiggle room. If I were to secure it too tightly to this panel, then it wouldn't spin. Oh, and here's my son. I was about to stamp down the sentiment, but he felt that he needed to give this spinner a try. He was so excited about this card. He absolutely loves fidget spinners. He has a huge collection, thanks to his wonderful aunties. Mostly, I think he likes to take them apart, but he has a lot of fun with them. I did use one layer of foam tape behind this panel. This will keep the brad from getting mashed down once I adhere it to the card base. I'm gluing on some colorful strips of paper just to add a little more interest to this card. And I forgot to mention that on the sentiment, I just used the same colored pencils to color in the word birthday. Once the glue is dry behind these strips of paper, to the point where they're not going to shift, I flip over this panel and cut off the overhang. Now I can go ahead and peel off the released paper and add this to my card base. And I thought a black card base looked nice behind this white panel. I think this turned out to be just a fun card. I love interactive cards that you can just sit and play with. I want to make up more of these just to have them on hand for kids' birthdays. And the spinner spins really smoothly. I was quite happy with it. This would really be a hit with the kids. In between making these two cards, I had ordered a Tim Holtz stamping platform, and it showed up in the mail that day. So this is the first time I've ever played with it. I needed a stamp positioner that was large enough to accommodate my larger stamps, and this was on sale on Amazon for a really good price. I know a lot of stampers are buying the mini version of this tool, and so maybe that's why they are discounting the larger ones. I don't know, I'm just guessing. But I thought I'd go for the larger one since I already have the mini Misty. I was kind of having trouble getting the top of this stamp to stamp out, and I think that magnet was kind of in the way. So I had to work and play with this a little bit more and get used to it. I'm using the coordinating die to die cut this fidget spinner. This card is really a clean and simple and quick card to put together. I'm not doing any coloring, I'm just using colored cardstock. I'm using a pencil to mark the center of this fidget spinner. I'm using a hole punch to create the hole. And then I'm going to actually use my scissors again just to make that hole a little bit bigger. The brad I'm using this time is a little bit bigger as well. I have a lot of brads in my stash, and it's nice to finally use up some of them. I cut out 2 different sizes of circles with my faux stitch dies. I'm going to attach this fidget spinner to this first red circle, and I just used my craft pick to pierce that, and again my scissors to make it a little bit larger. I remembered that I wanted to add another layer to this fidget spinner as well, so I just cut out another spinner with that same die. I'm going to add it onto this with some glue. I was glad that I remembered to do this because the weight of another piece of cardstock really helps it to spin. I'm doing the same thing for this card. I'm going to attach the brad to the spinner, as well as to the piece of cardstock I'm using behind it. And then I'll use this craft pick to kind of curl the ends of the brad around it. Since this brad is so much bigger than my last one, I'm going to add 2 layers of this foam tape. To add some fun interest to my card base, I pulled out the other fidget spinner stamp again, and I'm just stamping that across the card base. I'm using London Fog Memento ink instead of black ink because I wanted the pattern to be a little more muted. I used some sticky note paper to protect the back of my card. I'm going to do a little more stamping with this London Fog ink, and I know I should have done this before I put my fidget spinner together, but it was an afterthought. This little stamp has little scribbly lines, and it indicates motion, and I thought that would be cute around the fidget spinner as well as on my card base. I'm going to use another sentiment from this set, and it says, "Have a spin-tastic day." And I used some more Versamark ink to stamp that out and covered it with some clear embossing powder. Once the embossing powder has melted, I'm going to cut that out with a faux stitched banner die. This die is so narrow that I didn't think it was going to work, but it ended up working just perfectly. It was just the right size for this sentiment. Now I can put this card together. I'm using a little bit of dot liner for my first circle. I really like this darker gray color of cardstock, and I thought it would match my orange and yellow fidget spinner piece nicely. I did pop up my sentiment with a little bit of foam tape, just 1 layer. And then once I press that down, this card is complete. Here's my son again, and he just wanted to show you this card in action. Thanks for joining us today. I hope you were inspired to sit down and create something fabulous. Thanks for watching. Bye.